Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna and welcome back. Thank you for joining. Today we are discussing verse number 55 of chapter number 2 from Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And in the previous verse number 54, Arjuna is asking various questions. So Krishna from verse number 39 to 53, he is discussing about a person who is a karma yogi, and he describes the characteristics and benefits of acting in Nishkama Karma Yoga. So after hearing about such a elevated person, Arjuna has a question. So what are the symptoms of this personality who is a karma yogi? So here Arjuna is calling that person as sthita-prajna. Sthita-prajna means fixed intelligence. So what are his symptoms? So that is the first question. Or how does he reveal his position? So that will be answered in today's verse. And then the other question was, how does he speak and what is his language? And the meaning of that is, how does he react to other person's actions? And the next question was, how does he sit? Or what is the mentality when the senses are withdrawn from the sense objects, and how is he situated then? And the last question was, how does he walk? So walking means engaging his senses. How does a sthita-prajna engages his senses? So in today's verse number 55, Krishna is answering this first question. What are the symptoms of sthita-prajna, or how does he reveals his position? So let's read the Sanskrit for verse number 55, chapter 2, verse number 55. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. So Krishna is answering this. So therefore Krishna is addressed again over here as Shri Bhagavan. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan atmani eva atmana tushtaha sthita-prajnascha tadochyate. The translation is, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. So Krishna is addressed by Vyasadeva as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna says that, O Partha, son of Pritha is Arjuna. And Krishna is saying, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification, which arises from mental concoction, and when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So let's go into the Sanskrit terms and understand the verse. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. So Lord Krishna is speaking, therefore Lord Krishna is addressed over here as Shri Bhagavan. Now we have discussed this point in details in the previous sessions, why Lord Krishna is addressed as Shri Bhagavan. So the first line, that is 55a, Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan. So anyway, Krishna is talking about the person who is sthita-prajna. So sthita-prajna is means one whose intelligence is fixed, or wisdom is fixed. So Krishna is trying to describe in this verse what is the characteristics or what are the symptoms of that person. So now Krishna in this series of verses will use various words to describe this transcendentalist who is been called by Arjuna as sthita-prajna. And Krishna will be addressing that person or the transcendentalist as either sthita-prajna or sthita-vir muni, etc., etc. So they refer to the same person, but different attributes are highlighted by these different names. So over here the word sthita-prajna is used only in this particular section of Gita. Later this word sthita-prajna will not be referred by Krishna. So sthita-prajna over here means it's a fixed intelligence or fixed in wisdom, and they are not moved. So what are the characteristics of such a person? First is A, line A, 55A, Prajahati yada kaman. He gives up completely. What does he give up? Kaman. All desires. All desires of what? Sense gratification. So that is line B. Sarvan Partha Manogatan. So Partha is Arjun. And then he says Kaman, which is Sarvan. So he gives up all kinds of desire. That actually Sarvan Partha Manogatan means this kind of kama, or what kind of kama does he give up? He gives up kama that originates from manogatan, or mental concoction. So this kama, generally they arise from mind. They originate from mind. So therefore Krishna is saying that one who is fixed in intelligence, or that is actually the last line, sthita-prajna uchchadochate. So that kind of sthita-prajna, the first thing he does is, the first point is, he gives up completely all the desire. And that kind of desires that are generated from the mental concoction. Sarvan Partha Manogatan. And then what is the next thing that person does is Atmani eva Atmana tushta. So Atmani eva Atmana tushta means such a person is satisfied within by turning the mind inwards. So what does that mean? We'll discuss in a minute. So normally our desires is to become happy. All of us wants to be happy in this life. So if someone gives up all desires, then he has to give up the desire to become happy. So if one gives up all desires, then how such person can be happy? So here the important word is manogatan. So what kind of desire has to be given up? The desires of sense gratification which arises from mental concoction, that has to be given up. But the Atma, which is self-joyful. So Atma is Sat-Chit-Ananda, right? Sat-Chit and Ananda. We have discussed this earlier. So Ananda means bliss or happiness. So Ananda, the composition of the soul is Sat-Chit Ananda. The soul is made up of, to understand it in our terms, the soul is made up of Sat, Chit and Ananda. Sat means eternal, Chit means full of knowledge, Ananda means bliss. So we cannot take out this Ananda from soul. So soul is self-joyful in its original state. So when one becomes transcendentalist, then one experiences joy or happiness. So this happiness which we experience can be experienced at different levels of our existence. So we have 3 levels of existence. We have spirit, or we are the spirit soul, and then the spirit soul is within the body. So above the spirit soul is the mind and intelligence, and then outside is the body, senses and sense objects. So these are 3 different levels of happiness. These are 3 different levels of existence. So Atmani eva Atmana tushta. What does that mean? So in terms of our existence. So in the pure state, the soul is which is in the pure state, and when it is purified by, or when the mind becomes purified, and there are two times this word Atma is used. This Atmani is one time, and then there is a eva Atmana over here. So these 2 Atmas are used. One Atma is for the soul, which is this Atma is for the soul, and the soul in the pure state, and then this Atma is by the purified mind. So when the soul is happy, or tushta means santushta, we have heard this, satisfied internally, then that kind of person is sthita-prajna tadochate. So what it really means is that the soul is within the body, and we're discussing about the 3 levels of existence. and then we have this mind, and then we have this body and the senses. So when normally the way we try to enjoy is through the soul is trying to enjoy through the mind and through the senses and through the sense objects. So it is the external sense objects are there, or objects of senses are there, like some gadgets or a home or a car. So we are trying to enjoy that, which is external to our body, and that information comes into our mind, and we are trying to enjoy through our information comes to our mind through the senses and our body. So we are trying to enjoy in that way. But here the line C is telling us that the soul doesn't look for external happiness. The mind actually turns inwards towards the soul. It goes from the external things to or it is directed from outside towards the inside. So when we direct our thoughts inwards, instead of enjoying through our senses or sense object, we experience ananda, or we experience bliss. So Krishna says such a person rejects external pleasure and rejoices in the inner pleasure, and that is he seeks pleasure internally. So later Srila Prabhupada explains, how this applies to the devotees also. So when we actually take, as a devotee, we go to temple and we take darshan, and then we participate in kirtan and we dance in the kirtan, or do some other service. We interact with the external objects or something which is outside to us. So those are external to us. So are these external or internal pleasure? Because we are going to temple, we are doing service, and everything is external. But are these internal or external pleasure? So they seems to be external pleasure, external to our body. But these external pleasures help us to take towards inside, right? These are external things that can take us from Krishna. But there are external things that can take us away from Krishna. But these kind of things which we experience in temple, they are external pleasure which helps us to connect with Krishna internally. So Krishna is present in our heart, but the same Krishna actually manifests externally in various different forms, like Archa Vigraha, or the deities, or holy name, or musical instrument, etc., etc. So when we focus our consciousness on them, the pleasure which is contact of soul with Krishna, who has very mercifully manifested in the form externally. So when we contact Krishna externally, we awaken spiritually, and more we awaken spiritually, more we can perceive and relish Krishna's presence internally. So these external stimuli help us to remind and connect with Krishna. So this is the defining characteristics of sthita-prajna, that he moves from external happiness to internal happiness. And if we are seeking happiness externally, we are materialist. So Krishna is saying over here, don't look for happiness on the material or mental platform, but look for happiness at the level of soul or spiritual or internal platform. So from, while when we are studying Bhagavad Gita, and the understanding is that from Bhagavad Gita's point of view, even mental, which may be inside the body, is still external to the soul's point of view. So this is a very important point to understand, that the body, within the body, there is soul, and then there is a mind, and there is intelligence. So this mind, intelligence, and the senses and the body, these are external to the soul. They are material. The soul is only spiritual in this body. Rest everything is material. Of course, there is Supreme Soul also in the body, so he is also spiritual. But apart from him, apart from the soul and the Paramatma which is sitting in our heart, everything else is material. So they are external to the soul's point of view. So here Krishna is saying that Atmani eva Atmana tushta. So when the soul is deriving happiness through the purified mind, so with purified mind means the mind which has been purified from this kama, sarvan karma, kaman, sarvan partha manogatan. So purified from the desire of enjoying through the manogatan. Manogatan means the enjoyment of mental concoction. So when soul has rejected that, or when its soul rejects that kind of happiness, and then seeks for happiness within, then that kind of person is called as sthita-prajna. So this is the definition of sthita-prajna, or the characteristics of the sthita-prajna, which is given by Krishna here. So seek happiness at the level of soul internally, and reject happiness at the level of mind. So this is the essence of this verse. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada has to explain in this purport. So here we see this person is trying to enjoy through the mind. So that's the meaning, when the man gives up all varieties of desires of sense gratification which arise from mental concoction. So this person is trying to enjoy in this body through all these external objects, and when he gives up that, and then he connects within, after becoming purified, when he connects within to Krishna, and then try to enjoy that way, then that kind of person is said to be sthita-prajna. That is the characteristic of a person who is sthita-prajna. So let's see what Srila Prabhupada is giving in the purport. So pure devotees have all good qualities. In Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness or devotional service of the Lord has all good qualities of great sages, whereas a person who is not so transcendently situated has no good qualification, because he is sure to be taking refuge in his own mental concoction. So there are two options. One is somebody who is enjoying through his senses, through his mind, and other is then some other. If he is not enjoying that way, if his spirit is qualified, then he is actually engaged in Krishna service. So when somebody is engaged in Krishna service, then that person develops all kind of good qualities. So here the word to be understood is not all devotees, but pure devotees, somebody who has purified himself. So Bhagavatam affirms that any person who is fully in Krishna consciousness. So this is applicable to person who is fully in Krishna consciousness. When such person becomes fully in Krishna consciousness, at that point of time, that person has all good qualities of great sages. Otherwise, the person will be enjoying through his mind, through his mental concoction. What kind of desire should be given up? Consequently, it is rightly said herein that one has to give up all kind of sense desire manufactured by mental concoctions. So mind will give us various options to enjoy through the senses. So one has to give up all those kind of desires of sense enjoyment. How is it to be given up? How this mental concoction has to be given up? Artificially, such desire cannot be stopped. So desires to enjoy will not be able to stop artificially. But if we engage in Krishna consciousness, then automatically sense desire subside without extraneous effort. So when we divert our attention and we engage our senses for serving Krishna, so we are busy doing the service, then our mind doesn't get chance to actually enjoy through our senses. The desire doesn't get chance to express itself. Therefore, one has to be engaged himself in Krishna consciousness without hesitation, for his devotional service will instantly help one onto the platform of transcendental consciousness. So when we are doing these services all the time, then immediately, our consciousness will instantly become, it will help to instantly become transcendental. It can bring us one instantly to the platform of transcendental consciousness. Okay, so how can one find satisfaction in self? The highly developed soul always remains satisfied in himself by realizing himself as the eternal servitor of the Supreme Lord. So how does we get satisfaction? Because soul is seeking for happiness, right? So how does the soul become happy? So that soul becomes happy by realizing himself as eternal servitor of the Lord. So he realizes that when he engages in service, he realizes that actually he is the eternal servant of the Lord. Eternally is the servant of the Lord. And then that makes him very happy, because the Lord is his father, and he is having certain kind of relationship with the Lord, and he now be able to reconnect with the Lord. So that gives him, that makes the person satisfied. Such a transcendently situated person has no sense desire resulting from petty materialism. So when we understand about our real position, and we are satisfied by that, by serving the Lord, then we are not interested in this petty materialism. Or basically it means that we are not looking for happiness in some material form. Rather, he remains always happy in his natural position of eternally serving the Supreme Lord. So we derive our happiness by performing service to the Lord. When we serve the Lord, that gives us happiness. So this is how Prabhupada is defining, giving in the purport, that how one can be satisfied within. So this is the presentation, like in the flowchart form, to understand. Sthita-prajna is a man in fixed intelligence, and he is always steady in his determination. He gives up all varieties of desires of sense gratification. What kind of desires he gives up? Desires that are sense gratification, that are arising from mental concoction, from the mind. And when he does that, then his minds become purified. And when his mind is purified, then he is satisfied within. And the way Prabhupada is saying, so there are two levels over here. One level is for the karma yogi or nishkama karma yogi, and other is for the devotees, for the bhaktas. So bhaktas find satisfaction by serving the Lord, or knowing his eternal position as the servitor of the Lord, and then engaging in the service. Whereas the nishkama karma yogi, he connects with self, internally. So that's where he is able to know about him more and more through knowledge. So this is how this different kind of yogis deal with the same thing. Okay, so the purport is talking about whatever has been discussed in the purport is given the presentation format here, and you can study about it, and then we will discuss the other questions which Arjuna has asked in the next sessions. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.